The stone curse falls. The market on planet Yulari was full of life. Strange colors filled the sky, and music floated in the air. Creatures from many worlds walked between stalls, trading goods and stories. Among them was a young alien girl named Naira. She had smooth blue skin, bright silver eyes, and a smile that warmed even the coldest hearts. She sold glowing fruits that healed sickness. Everyone liked her, but no one truly knew her. Naira's stall sat in the corner, near the shade of a giant crystal tree. She was arranging her fruits carefully, humming a soft tune. Suddenly, something strange happened. A traveler passed by, a tall, cloaked figure. He dropped a small round object from his belt. It rolled near Naira's foot and gave off a soft, red light. She bent down, picked it up without thinking, and the moment her fingers touched the glowing surface, her hand jerked back. Her smile vanished. Her fingers stiffened. She dropped the object, and it cracked on the ground with a flash of red smoke. Naira gasped, holding her arm. Her veins darkened, turning gray. Her legs trembled. The nearby customers stared, unsure what was happening. Naira whispered, "No, not now." Her skin began to harden. It spread from her hand to her arm. Her fruit basket dropped, scattering healing fruits across the dirt. "Help, please," she whispered again. But no one moved. Fear spread through the crowd. One alien mother grabbed her child and backed away. A vendor shouted, "It's a curse. Stay away." Others turned their backs and fled. Naira looked around, her eyes filled with tears, her lips trembling. Then she saw someone. A human man. Jack stood still. He wasn't running. He was staring at her. He had no weapons, no armor, just a worn brown jacket and tired eyes. His ship was grounded nearby. He had only come to buy fuel. But something about Naira's voice froze him in place. Her lips moved again. "Help me." Before he could think, Jack stepped forward. "Wait, don't touch her," someone shouted. But Jack didn't stop. He reached out, touching her arm gently. It was stone now, cold and rough. But under that cold, he felt something faint. A pulse, like she was still alive, trapped inside. Naira's face was the last part to freeze. Her eyes locked on Jack's. A single tear rolled down her cheek, and then she was still, silent. Stone. The crowd slowly returned, whispering and staring. Someone said, "She's gone." Another said, "It's too late." But Jack didn't believe it. He bent down and picked up the broken object that caused it all. It looked old. Ancient writing covered the cracked shell. He didn't understand it, but he knew this wasn't just some accident. It was a curse, a powerful one. Jack looked at Naira's frozen face. Even in stone, she looked peaceful, but also full of pain. He took a deep breath and said softly, "You asked for help. I heard you." Most people would have walked away. But Jack was different. Maybe because he had lost someone once. Someone who had begged for help, but no one had come. So this time, he would not turn away. He called over his small hover cart and gently lifted the statue onto it. She was heavier, now fully stone, but Jack moved with care. The crowd watched in silence. No one offered help. No one asked questions. They simply let him go. As he pushed the cart through the streets, people stepped aside. Some made signs of protection. Others whispered about the foolish human. But Jack didn't hear them. His eyes were locked on the girl who had whispered for help and turned to stone. Back on his ship, he placed the statue in the cargo room and sat beside it. He didn't know what to do yet. He had no answers. But he knew one thing. He would not let this be her end. Jack didn't know her name, her story, or where she came from. But he had seen the look in her eyes, the same look he had once seen in his sister's eyes long ago. Desperation, fear, hope. He whispered, "You're not alone. I'll find a way." And so began a journey neither of them had planned. A journey between a frozen alien girl and the only human who dared to believe she could still be saved. The curse had fallen, but hope had not. The human touch Jack couldn't sleep that night. The image of her face, frozen mid-tear, kept coming back to him. He sat alone in his ship, the girl's stone form resting in the next room. He didn't even know her name, yet her silent cry kept echoing in his mind. "Help me." That was all she had said, but that was enough. He walked into the room again, switching on the soft light. The stone girl stood there, just as before, arms half raised, her mouth slightly parted like she had been about to speak. She looked like a statue from a forgotten legend. Yet Jack didn't see a statue. He saw a life paused, not ended. Slowly, he reached out his hand and touched her fingers. Again, they were cold, still stone. But something strange happened. For a split second, Jack felt a light buzz in his fingertips. A faint vibration. He pulled back, startled. What was that? Curious, he placed a scanner against her wrist. The results shocked him. No life signs. Yet the scanner refused to classify her as dead. The screen blinked. Unstable stasis detected. Possible life locked in magical suspension. Jack blinked. Magical. He wasn't a man of myths. He was a mechanic, a pilot, a survivor. But now, faced with something science couldn't explain, he had no choice. He sat beside her and stared at the cracked object that had caused the curse. It was round, old, covered in markings. He took out his translator tool and began scanning the symbols. Line by line, a rough translation appeared. The touch awakens. The bond heals. Only a true heart can break the seal. Jack frowned. What kind of seal? And what did bond mean? Did he have to connect with her emotionally? Physically? Spiritually? He leaned back, thinking hard. Why had she reacted when he touched her? Why had the pulse returned, if only for a second? Then, he had an idea. He remembered a small energy amplifier in his ship's repair bay, usually used to jumpstart engines. But with some adjustments, it could mimic a biolink between two living beings. If he could channel a signal from his own life force, maybe he could wake her up. It was dangerous. One wrong setting, and he could fry both of them. But doing nothing wasn't an option. Hours passed as Jack rewired the device. He connected a thin wire to a metal cuff and strapped it gently onto the girl's wrist. Then he connected the other end to his own. All right, he whispered. Let's see if belief is enough. He flipped the switch. A soft hum filled the room. The energy pulsed gently between them. Jack closed his eyes, focusing his thoughts. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you're from. But you asked for help, and I'm here. I believe you're still in there. At first, nothing happened. Just the hum of the machine. Then the lights flickered. A soft glow formed around her hand. Jack's heart jumped. The stone's surface shimmered, just for a second, and then went still again. Jack panted. His head hurt, and he felt drained. But something had changed. He reached out again. This time, when his skin touched hers, the stone wasn't as cold. It was warmer, slightly softer. Jack's eyes widened. You're in there. He switched off the machine, saving its power. He didn't want to push her too fast. Instead, he sat beside her and started talking. He told her about Earth, about his past, his sister, how he had grown tired of war and noise and had come out here to find peace. He told her how he never thought he'd care for anyone again. But something about her cry had cut through everything. Maybe you don't even hear me, he said. But maybe a part of you does. As he spoke, he didn't notice the faint shimmer in her chest. A soft glow began pulsing under the stone. It was weak, but steady. She was still in there, trapped, waiting. And Jack was no longer just a passerby. He was becoming her only chance. Outside, the stars moved across the sky. But inside that quiet room, a silent connection had begun, one that could change both their worlds forever. Secrets in the blood. Jack didn't believe in fate. But now, as he studied the strange reactions between his body and the stone girl's, he began to question everything he knew. He had never seen anything like this before. Under normal rules of science, stone didn't respond to touch. And yet, her skin had pulsed under his hand. The scanner had detected a shimmer of life, just for a second. The stone was not just stone. It was hiding something alive that he needed answers. Jack rolled his chair toward his lab station. He had taken a tiny flake from her stone skin earlier, just enough to test without harming her. He placed it under his analysis lens and let the machine scan its structure. The results came back strange. The outer layer was silicon-based, like stone, but inside, organic matter, DNA, blood vessels, frozen but still there. And something else. Her cells were not dead. They were sleeping, alive, but locked in place by a force that refused to let go. Jack leaned forward. That's not science, he whispered. That's design. It was like someone had built the curse carefully, layer by layer, letting life remain underneath while trapping the surface in stone. But why? He ran a second test. He let a drop of his own blood fall onto the skin sample. At first, nothing happened. Then, the stone sparkled, briefly, and a golden ring appeared around the contact point before fading again. Jack's heart pounded. What was that? He tried it again. Same reaction. Something in her reacted only to human blood. Was it an accident? Or was this curse built with humans in mind? He checked her DNA once more. It was mostly alien, but hidden deep inside was a strange twist. A small, almost invisible strand that looked familiar. It resembled a fragment of ancient human DNA. But how? There were no records of this species ever interacting with Earth. Her people, the Chirelians, were healers. Peaceful. They rarely left their own world. They had no history of war with humanity. They stayed quiet, far away, unless someone tried to silence them. Jack's thoughts grew darker. What if her people were punished not for fighting, but for something else? Something they carried in their blood? Something valuable? He searched deeper into his ship's archives, pulling old star charts, trade records, history files. One document caught his eye, an ancient record from a lost empire, thousands of years old. It spoke of a race called the Chirelians, keepers of balance, protectors of the forgotten link. The text ended with a chilling note. Break the bond before it awakens. Curse the line. Silence the heart. Jack read it again, slower. This time, it wasn't just about her. It was about her whole species. And whatever that bond was, it wasn't gone. It was inside her people. And now, for some reason, it was responding only to him. Jack sat back, shaken. What are you, Naira? He whispered, finally saying the name he had found listed under her market license. It was a small thing, but it made her feel more real. Not just the stone girl. She had a name, a story, and maybe a destiny. He walked to the room again, stood in front of her still form. You're not cursed because you're weak, he said softly. You're cursed because you matter. Because someone's afraid of what you are. She stood still, but something in the air had changed. Jack could feel it, like the ship was no longer silent. Like the walls themselves were listening. He placed his hand on her chest, just above her heart. I don't know what the bond is, he said. But if it's real, if it's tied to humans, then we're already connected. And as if answering, a single crack appeared across her shoulder, small, almost invisible, but there. The stone had shifted again. Jack's connection to her wasn't just luck. It was written in their blood. Whispers from the stone. Jack hadn't planned to sleep, but exhaustion won. He sat beside Naira's stone form, leaning his head against the wall. The lights dimmed around him, the hum of the ship soft and steady. He closed his eyes for only a moment, and then he heard it. A whisper, so soft it barely touched his ear. Jack. His eyes snapped open. He looked around the empty room. No one was there. Naira stood exactly as before, silent, frozen, still, stone. But something had changed. The air felt heavy, like something invisible was watching. Jack rubbed his eyes and stood, staring at her face. Her lips hadn't moved, but the voice had been clear. Jack. It came again. He stumbled backward, heart racing. Who's there? He asked, half whispering. The voice answered, not with words, but with feelings, fear, loneliness, darkness. It wasn't a voice from the outside. It was coming from inside his own mind. Jack gripped the edge of a table to steady himself. Is that you, Naira? A wave of warmth passed through him. Yes, it was her, trapped, but awake. Somehow, their connection had gone deeper. Maybe it was the blood test. Maybe the energy transfer. Or maybe she had always been reaching for someone, and Jack was simply the first to reach back. He closed his eyes, focusing. Can you hear me? He asked quietly. The answer was not words, but a soft pulse of light from her chest. It flickered once, then faded. Jack stepped forward, touched the stone gently. I'm here, he said. I'm listening. Images filled his mind, flashes of Naira's life. She was young, running across glowing grass under twin suns. Her mother smiled, holding her close. Her people lived in peace, surrounded by nature and light. Then, one day, ships appeared in the sky, dark, silent, filled with fear. The curse was not born from magic. It was made by hands, forged in fear of her bloodline. The bond Jack had read about was something her people carried, a rare connection to life itself. Her family had tried to hide. The Empire found them. One by one, they were turned to stone, sealed forever, their voices silenced. Naira had escaped, until now. In the last moment before the curse took her, she had looked around for help. No one came. Except one human. The vision ended. Jack opened his eyes with tears on his face. He now understood this wasn't just about one girl. This was about a whole people wiped from history. And the only key left to break the curse was him. He took a deep breath, steadied his hands, and began to speak. "I won't leave you," he said. "Even if I have to go to the darkest planet, face the worst powers, I'll do it. I'll find a way." Nairia's voice, still faint inside him, whispered back, "Thank you." The next morning, Jack woke with new resolve. He scanned old star maps, traced the ruins of the empire that had cursed her people. Somewhere, in the ashes of that fallen power, there had to be a way to undo what had been done. But one thing was already certain. Naira was no longer alone, and neither was Jack. Their bond had begun not through touch, but through trust. Through the quiet belief that even a frozen voice could still be heard. The ritual of the winds howled outside the ruins of Mirilar, an ancient temple long buried beneath the sands of a dead moon. Jack stood at its edge, breath-shallow eyes fixed on the entrance. Nairia's stone form was strapped carefully to a hover sled behind him. The journey had been long, dangerous, but he had followed the clues from her memories, the whispers in his dreams, and now he was here. This was the last known place her people had performed the ritual of two, a powerful act once used to connect souls, heal wounds, and unlock locked hearts. Jack didn't fully understand it, but he didn't need to. What mattered was that Nairia's spirit had led him here. The doorway hissed open with a groan, revealing a chamber untouched by time. The walls were covered in carvings, two figures standing together, hands joined, light bursting from their bodies. Jack moved slowly, guiding Nairia's statue into the center of the room. The heart of the floor was a large ring made of glowing crystal. This was the place. He gently placed her there and stepped back. From his pack, he took out the old translator, the bloodlink scanner, and the amplifier device he had built from scraps. All the pieces were here, but there was one thing missing. The final ingredient was trust. He sat beside her once more and whispered, "If I fail, I might turn to stone too." Silence. But then a shimmer of gold light appeared beneath her feet, tracing the lines of the ancient ritual circle. He took it as a sign. Jack stood tall. He strapped the amplifier cuff to her wrist again and one to his own. The device hummed gently, but this time, he added something more. A small cut on his palm. A drop of his blood. It hit the floor with a soft glow, and suddenly, the chamber came alive. The carvings on the walls lit up. The floor beneath them pulsed with energy, and then the voice returned, not in his head, but through the chamber itself. "Do you offer your spirit?" Jack swallowed hard. "Yes." "Do you carry her burden?" "Yes." "Will you feel her pain and give your strength in return?" "Yes." The energy surged. A beam of light rose from the circle, wrapping around both him and Naira. His body tensed. Heat rushed through his veins. He felt her fear, her sorrow, her last thoughts before she was turned to stone. She had begged to live, begged to stay, and now she was reaching again, reaching for him. Jack dropped to his knees, trembling. His skin started to burn, gold lines crawling up his arms like vines of fire. His vision blurred. "Naira, I'm here. I'm not letting go." The stone cracked. A piece fell from her shoulder. Then her arm. Jack screamed, not in pain, but in release. As the energy tore through him, Naira's body glowed from within. The stone was peeling away, turning to dust. Her chest heaved. Her lips moved. Her eyes snapped open, glowing silver, filled with life and tears. She gasped for air and fell forward into Jack's arms. He collapsed, the last of his strength leaving him. She caught him, held him, and whispered through trembling lips, "You came. You really came." He smiled weakly, barely able to speak. "Told you. I believe in you." Then his eyes closed, unmoving. Naira held him tighter, heart racing. The ritual was only half complete. He had saved her, but at great cost, and now it was her turn to save him. The awakening for the first time in what felt like a lifetime. Naira breathed real air. It burned her throat, tasted like fire and salt, but it was real, and it meant she was alive. She had expected silence. Darkness. Nothing. Instead, she woke to warmth, and Jack's body limp in her arms. "No," she whispered, her voice rough and shaky. "No, no, no." She pulled him closer, her fingers trembling as they touched his skin. His face was pale, his breath barely there, his body cold. He had given everything to free her. Naira pressed her forehead to his and closed her eyes. Her people's rituals always required balance. The ritual of two had a rule: life for life, heart for heart. She had been asleep while he had carried all the pain. Now that she was awake, she would have to carry his. "Don't leave me," she whispered. "You can't bring me back, just to vanish." Memories rushed through her. Her home, her family, the laughter of her younger siblings before they turned to stone one by one. She had been the last, the one meant to survive, the one chosen to carry the bond forward. But she would not carry it alone anymore. Not after Jack. She gently laid him on the glowing crystal floor, placing her hand over his heart. The light from the ritual circle was fading, but a soft flicker still pulsed beneath the surface. There was one chance, a forgotten rite, an ancient act of soul-sharing only used by royal Chirelians. It hadn't been spoken of in generations, but her mother had taught it to her once, in secret, for the one who truly sees you. It was dangerous that it could kill her, or worse, trap them both in a forever sleep. But Naira no longer cared about danger. She only cared about Jack. She took a deep breath, her palm still on his chest. Her other hand rested over her own heart. Then, softly, she began to chant. The words were old, the sound like a song the stars had long forgotten. As she spoke, a golden glow spread across her body, connecting her heart to his. Her voice shook, but she did not stop. With each word, a piece of her life flowed into him. Her memories, her warmth, her soul. "You gave everything for me," she whispered, tears falling. "So now I give it back to you." Jack's body twitched. His fingers moved slightly. Naira continued, pushing past the dizziness, the ache in her chest. The glow between them grew brighter, until the whole chamber looked like it was on fire. And then he coughed. Once. Then. Again. His chest rose with breath. Naira gasped and fell forward, her strength gone. Jack opened his eyes slowly, confused, dazed. "Wow, what happened?" She smiled weakly. "You saved me," she said, barely able to speak. "So I returned the favor." He blinked, realizing she was no longer stone. Her skin, warm. Her eyes, real. Her voice, alive. "You're here," he whispered. "I am," she said, and a small laugh escaped her lips. "You brought me back." He reached up and touched her cheek. "And you brought me back." They lay there for a moment, not speaking, just breathing, just feeling. For the first time, they weren't a statue and a stranger. They were two souls bound together, not by magic, not by fate, but by choice. Outside, the moon winds howled across the temple ruins. Inside, two hearts beat again, one because it believed, the other because it finally found something worth waking up for. Cursed no more, the stars above Mir Eler shone brighter that night, as if the galaxy itself had paused to witness something impossible. Deep within the ancient temple, two figures sat quietly, no longer broken, no longer alone. Naira stared at her hands, soft, warm, alive. Inno stone. No curse. She flexed her fingers slowly, still in disbelief. The air around her tasted like freedom. Every heartbeat felt like a small miracle. After so long locked inside silence and darkness, she could feel again. Beside her, Jack leaned against a carved pillar, watching her quietly. His body still ached. His chest felt hollow from the energy he had given, but he was alive. And not just alive, whole. They didn't need words right away. Silence between them now wasn't empty. It was full of meaning, of understanding, of something that went beyond language. Finally, Naira broke the quiet. "I remember everything you said to me," she whispered, "even when I couldn't answer." Jack smiled softly. "I wasn't. Sure, you heard me." "I did. Every word. Every promise." She turned to him, her silver eyes glowing faintly. "You didn't just break the curse, Jack. You changed something deeper." Jack sat up straighter. "What do you mean?" Naira looked down at the faded ritual circle beneath their feet. The glow was gone, but a mark remained. A new symbol, never seen before, burned into the stone. Two hands joined. One human, one Chirelian. Jack frowned. "That wasn't there before." "It's a bond seal," Naira said slowly. "A permanent one." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Good or bad?" She smiled. Both, maybe. It means we're connected now. For life. Maybe even beyond. Jack blinked. That's a big deal. Yes, she said. Then her smile faded into thought. And it also means something else. She stood and walked to one of the temple walls. Her hand brushed over an old symbol, a forgotten language, older than her people. When I was frozen, she said softly, I felt others. Like me. Trapped. Sleeping. Still waiting. Jack stood beside her. Others under the curse. She nodded. My people. Scattered. Hidden. Lost across the stars. A heavy silence returned. Jack understood. Breaking her curse was just the beginning. There were more. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. Still turned to stone. Still calling out. And now, because of what they had done, because of the bond, they had the key to waking them. Jack exhaled slowly. So what now? Naira looked at him. I steady. We find them. Jack chuckled. Guess I'm not going back to quiet life anytime soon. You never were quiet, she teased. He smirked. Says the girl who screamed into my brain. She stepped closer, her hand reaching for his. We'll need strength and trust. Jack took her hand without hesitation. We already have both. Outside, the desert winds faded. The stars moved on. But in that old temple, a new promise was born, not just between human and alien, but between two souls who had defied silence, defied fear, and chosen to stand together. The curse was gone, but the mission had only just begun.